Hello and welcome to What's in the Night Sky for February 2023. The highlights that I've chosen for us this month are a possible naked eye comet, a meeting of the solar system's brightest and dimmest planets, the ocean of storms on the moon, and the constellation of Auriga, the charioteer. Let's begin by looking south at the beginning of the month just after dusk. So here we're on the 1st of February at around 6 p.m. and you can see that we've got Venus, Jupiter, and Mars all in a line here, naked eye planets that you can see after dusk throughout the month. If we take a closer look at Venus, you can see that at the beginning of the month, if I move time forward by an hour, Venus will set before 7 o'clock. As the month goes on, Venus gets a little bit higher, so it's easier to observe Venus later in February rather than at the beginning. And another interesting thing that happens with Venus is if we move to the 15th, you can see that the nights are getting brighter as well. So as the month goes on, you'll need to go out a bit later if you want it to be dark. So I'm just going to take us a bit further away from sunset. So we've got Venus here moving closer to Jupiter on the 15th. And if we take a look with a pair of binoculars, you can see that Venus is very, very close to Neptune on the 15th. So they're having a bit of a close encounter. And you can try to see if you can spot both of them together, the brightest planet in the solar system and the dimmest. You can have a go with a pair of binoculars if you have them. If you're struggling to spot Neptune with your binoculars and you have a telescope, you can have a go with a telescope, starting off at a fairly low magnification, and then you can try a high magnification as well. So if you haven't seen Neptune before, it's a good opportunity to try and spot it as well. If we keep going through the month, Venus closes in on Jupiter as we get towards the end of February. And you can see that when we get to the 28th, they're really, really close together. And again, you can have a go with your binoculars and you might be able to spot both of them. This will be quite a spectacular sight in binoculars, especially if you have a steady enough hand. You might also be able to spot Jupiter's 4 Galilean moons in the field of view as well. That will depend on the power of your binoculars and how still you're able to hold them. You can also, again, have a go with a small telescope if you've got one. The closest approach of these two actually occurs on the 1st of March, where they're even closer than they are in February. If we just go back to the 22nd, when Jupiter and Venus are a little bit further apart, you also can see that the moon joins the party on the 22nd. So if you have a clear sky on the 22nd, you can have a go at seeing Jupiter, Venus, and the crescent moon forming a triangle with each other, which will be quite nice to see as well. Let's stay with the moon and take a look at this month's full moon, which occurs on the 5th. The full moon in February is what's known as a micromoon, and that's because it is at its furthest point away from us in its orbit, and you might think that it appears a little bit smaller and a little bit dimmer than usual. The feature that I would like you to have a go at spotting this month is known as the Ocean of Storms, which is a massive region, more than 1,000 miles long, made of solidified lava, just like all of the seas on the moon. And you can see that I'm ringing it with my mouse now. So see if you can spot the Ocean of Storms. The Ocean of Storms is where the Apollo 12 moon landing happened. So you can see if you can spot the Apollo 12 landing site. That has now been photographed from space as well, so you can have a look at some images of the Apollo 12 landing site as photographed by the Lunar Reconnaissance Orbiter. And where it lies is, if you look at these two bright ray craters here, Copernicus and Kepler, it's between the two of them, but down towards the Tycho crater. So you've got the Tycho crater over here, Copernicus and Kepler, and the Apollo 12 landing site is just around here. One of the experiments that Apollo 12 left on the moon was a seismometer, and that measured moonquakes, which helped to discover the internal structure of the moon. So Apollo 12 was really important in terms of increasing our understanding of the moon. When I say take a look and see if you can spot the Apollo 12 landing site, I of course mean see if you can spot the region where Apollo 12 landed, this region below the Copernicus and Kepler craters, because there is no Earth-based equipment that would enable us to actually see one of the Apollo landing sites. And that's why it's so useful to us to have equipment like the Lunar Reconnaissance Orbiter, which is orbiting the moon and is able to take these super high resolution photographs that we wouldn't be able to get from the Earth. I want to stay on the 5th of February now, and I'm just going to zoom out and take us to have a look at this month's comet. And the comet is named C2022E3ZTF. Not a very interesting name, and it's thought to be on the limit of naked eye visibility in early February. So if you have a really dark location, you could have a go at spotting it with your naked eye. A better thing to do would be to have a go and see if you can find it with a pair of binoculars. The reason that I've chosen the 5th to talk to you about it is because it appears very close to the bright star Capella, and that will help you to locate it. The trade-off, of course, is that the full moon is going to be in the sky, and we know that when the full moon is visible, the light from the moon can wash out fainter things. But I think it's still worth having a go on the 5th. As the month goes on, the comet does get dimmer. So if you are going to try and spot it, I would have your first go towards the beginning of the month. At the very beginning of the month, before the 5th, it's quite difficult to locate because there are not very many good landmarks nearby. And that's why I think it's worth having a go on the 5th. So if we have a look at Capella, up here in our constellation of the month, which is Auriga. Auriga is quite an easy constellation to spot because it has this bright star, and because it's close to Orion and Taurus, and Orion and Taurus are some of the brightest and most well-known constellations in the night sky. So what you can do if you're not familiar is see if you can find Orion, the familiar asterism of Orion's belt, follow Orion's belt up to Aldebaran, the angry eye of the bull in Taurus, and then it's just a short hop up to Capella. And you can also observe Mars as well, which is in the constellation of Taurus throughout February. And you have the Pleiades, Seven Sisters star cluster here as well. So there's so much to see in this region of the sky during February. So if we go up here to Capella, and you can see that here is the comet, and if we put our binocular view on, it will look like a really fuzzy patch in your binoculars. You might be able to make out that it has this fuzziness about it that suggests that it's not a star. If you have a telescope, by all means have a go with your telescope as well. It might be a tricky spot, but definitely worth having a go at. If we follow it into the middle of the month, so let's just keep our eye on the comet and go a little bit further in time to around the 10th, 11th, you can see it's making its way towards Mars. So again, you can use Mars as a landmark around the 10th of the 11th or the 11th. You haven't got the moon in the way this time, so that might help, although the comet itself will be dimmer than it was on the 5th. So the 10th and the 11th close to Mars. There we go, the 11th. And then if we keep going, we find that it gets towards the angry eye of the bull on the 14th and the 15th. Going later than that, the comet is getting dimmer and dimmer. So definitely want to try to spot in the beginning and towards the middle of the month. That leads us on nicely to our constellation of the month, which is Auriga. We've already talked about how to find it. It's a circumpolar constellation, which means it's visible all year round, never setting from our location, but autumn and winter are the best time to see it. So now's a great time to go and explore this constellation. It is named the Charioteer, because Auriga means the charioteer in Latin, and is so named because the stars form a similar shape to the charioteer's pointed helmet. One popular story is that Auriga was raised by the goddess Athena and was the first person to tame and harness 4 horses in a chariot. If we take a look at the constellation art, you can see that they are depicted here carrying a goat. That's because one version of the legend suggests that Auriga was a shepherd, appearing in the sky when the shepherds would be out at night tending their flocks. If we take the constellation art off now and explore the constellation a little bit more, have a look at what you can see in this constellation. One is an asterism known as the Kids, and if I put the asterism lines and labels on, you can see it over here, this little triangle of stars, and these stars are all around third magnitude, so they shouldn't be too difficult to spot if you are in a reasonably dark sky. So find Capella first and then have a look for the little goats, the 3 Kids asterism. Let's just remove those again just so that it's a little bit less messy. The other thing you can have a go at, your Deep Sky Challenge for this month, is there are 3 star clusters in Auriga, M36, M37 and M38, all appearing in a line. And if I move over here, we can see if we can spot them. So here is the first one, M37, the salt and pepper cluster. These are all around 5th, 6th magnitude, so right on the limit of naked eye visibility. You can have a go at them with a pair of binoculars, you can have a go at them with a small telescope. If you're looking at them in a pair of binoculars, they'll probably appear like a fuzzy patch. So there's the first one, M37, the salt and pepper cluster. If we go this way, you can see over here we have M36, which is the pinwheel cluster. And then if we go further still, we have M38, the starfish cluster. So M36, M37, M36 and M38, the salt and pepper cluster, the pinwheel cluster and the starfish cluster, all star clusters that you can spot with a pair of binoculars or possibly your naked eye in the constellation of Auriga. I want to move away from Auriga now and tell you about 2 more lunar close encounters that you can catch towards the end of the month. The first one is on the 26th. And that is the crescent moon with the Pleiades star cluster in Taurus. So a nice opportunity to see those 2 together. You can have a go with your binoculars if you have them available too. And the other one is on the 28th. We just watch the motion of the moon. Evening of the 27th, morning of the 28th actually. The moon and Mars will be close together. So if you would like to see the red planet and a moon that's just about half illuminated in the same region of sky, then the evening of the 27th, morning of the 28th is the time to do that. That brings me to the end of our night sky tour for February, and I hope that you have clear skies for all of your observing this month.